Hello, the Munsons with the moment here on New Reality TV, and this is the continuation of the show, which had too many moments to fit into a moment show on Thursday, the 17th of April.
Yeah.
So welcome back to part 2 of that show.
So
basically.
This is episode 75 of the moment.
75.
I know.
Wow. Okay.
Should we take that
when you're having fun.
Bottom thing off, because no one's going to be joining us in the show.
But I can ask this question, and we'd love to hear your comments and your responses to that. What are the signals to you that we're in a period of change, of a new reality? Maybe we should ask it a different way. How could you deny at the moment that we are in a period of change in a new reality? And please do. I mean, this is how this the first part of this program began. It was a check-in, it was a breathe out, and it was a sharing of recent insight and things that had occurred to us, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there wasn't enough time for me to talk about
something.
I teased you with. I put it on the table, and then we ran out of time.
So in episode 74, like literally the one that's just been released live, you revealed something that just couldn't be possibly explored in like 2 minutes or 30 seconds.
And you were there like, what? No, you can't say that and not talk about it. So and it was a bit cheeky of me. It was a bit clickbait.
So you mentioned ex-girlfriends.
I wanted to apologise to all the women in my life.
Okay, where do you want to start with that?
I don't mean all, like, whatever it is, 5 billion women in the world. I mean significant women, and this came from there's a lot.
Let me ask the questions, okay? Because I want to get. Right. I want to really get.
That's
to the
my
bottom
first
of this.
apology. To a significant. Sorry, go on. Yeah, go ahead.
So, where did that feeling first come up for you that you wanted to apologise, and why? What is it that?
Well, that's not what came up. I didn't wake up one morning think I must apologise to all the women. I mean, other people might have thought I should do that, but it wasn't a live thought for me.
So where did
I tell
it
you
first...
the process that led up to it? As you heard in the last segment, if you watch it, we've been talking a lot about growing up, or not, as the case may be. I mean, but perhaps that's more an appropriate description, and how we learn to be adults as children. And more or less, because there are things that work and there are things that don't work. And often the things that I think that don't work get shelved or compartmentalized or buried deep. And a lot of what we've talked about in the previous episode was freeing that, right? Of loving ourselves, loving our inner child, letting the light out, and being expanded and more conscious and truly what we are. Yeah. Okay, and Black Moon Jesus described it as imprisoning our light self.
Yeah,
and that is a very good description. And I think in terms of what's going on right now and what are the signals that are in a new reality, that might be one of them. That is, in some way or other, people are being prompted to open up and to heal and to look a little bit deeper and no longer put up with. I mean, you talked about this, didn't you? You talked about how you hadn't been listening to your body.
No.
And you're getting to a point where if you don't do that, it's not going to be good.
I've been gaslighting my body. My body had been saying,
excellent.
Like it'd been feeling discomfort.
An excellent description of a terrible process.
Yeah. I'd been feeling something, and it's like my conscious mind or my personality, my well-crafted personality was like, you can't really feel that. That can't be true. And really what I was doing to my body was what my parents kindly
that was your training.
Yeah, that was my training from my parents. They didn't realize that what they were saying would persist in me, I guess.
And I think what came up is, this is not a witch hunt against parents or previous generations. It's necessarily so that all parents do their best and they come from their most loving place, even if sometimes in retrospect or in the moment it doesn't look like it.
Doesn't look like love.
They're doing their best. And so, what do you do with that? Do you continue to blame your parents, or do you look a little bit deeper and actually see that the training we've received, and this is something I want to talk about, this is what we're recording today, the training that you receive but continue to run with it becomes your problem and your responsibility to deal with.
I want to stop you there.
Right there.
Because obviously I know that you have this feeling that you'd like to apologize to the important women in your life or women that have been in your life at turning points maybe. So my first question is, what programming did you learn from your parents about women and apologizing to women or
I
your
know-
relationship
I learned
in
not to apologise to women. My father and stepfather are quite, men of their time, shall we say. And as growing up, I didn't really appreciate how they viewed and saw women. And in a typical sort of young person way, in the way that when you become a parent, you say, I'll never do what my parents did. And, moments later, the words of your parents coming out of your own mouth.
especially when you become a mum or a dad.
Yeah, right. So, it's that sort of thing. So on the one hand, I thought I was quite an enlightened partner, lover, new man. I quite like that idea. This is long before metrosexuals and the Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate conversations. This is when I was learning about maybe the first sort of intimations of even having an inner child, of the idea of new men who are a little bit softer and more considerate, and that there might be different kinds of love. So I viewed my father and stepfather as quite barbaric males who really were only interested in women for one thing, which is true. I think it was true, and they would have, by their own admission. But you can't, as well as being interested in women for one thing, which was a very much a 70s phrase, he only wants one thing, and it's a perennial for men anyway. That's another debate for another time. But this was in the time of when men were being described as chauvinists. So on the one hand, you had chauvinist pigs, who some women quite liked. It's an archetype that has a sort of attractiveness, and maybe that's for women who also haven't learned to love themselves. So there's a
they might have been described as players, like
all of that, and it's like, I like bad boys, and good men are boring men, and the whole new man thing was coming out in the 80s of like being a bit softer, and Athena posters of men holding babies, which I think melted,
and a tire over their other shoulder.
Yeah, and which melted the ovaries of some women, didn't it? And there was an idea that
I grew up with that as an archetype.
Men might even be at their children's births. This is this is the time we're talking about.
Yeah.
And men might change nappies. My father never changed a nappy, and my stepfather didn't. Are you saying I don't, or didn't do? Can I just say? Can I say it's an improvement? I'm an improvement on my father's, if by way.
Yes, but I mean, it's not an issue.
It obviously is.
All I did was look.
Yeah, and I am so attuned to that energy of, this comes from my mother, of course.
Yeah, so that's my next question. So you've learned about women from your dad and stepdad.
Yeah,
you've learned and rebelled, had a different way of being.
And as well as being a new man, I bought the book The Art of Loving.
Yes.
So it became clear to me in my teenage interest in psychology and spirituality that love might mean things other than sex, and it might not be soppy and a bad thing. Because those were some of the key messages, like, romance, God, it's fine while it's fine, and forget it for the rest of your life and your marriage. And, men only want one thing, women are like this, and very 70s, 80s stereotypical views. And I think all of those sort of views now, fixed views about things, are coming from where people haven't had a good look and haven't healed themselves.
Okay,
that's where I was coming
from. That's my next question.
Yeah.
What did you learn about interactions with women from your mother?
Right. And my dad, I have to say, noticing the interaction. Can I put?
Yeah, sure.
Or is it two separate questions?
That's two separate questions, because the dynamics between your mum and dad are very, very different. But
okay, my mum is quite traditional. My mum is quite traditional, and she is quite exacting and wanted a certain thing, and if I didn't conform to that, that meant the wall coming down, coldness, even detachment, and killing me off if I didn't conform to her idea of things.
Which she's done your whole life.
Yeah. And I really don't want this to sound like some sort of witch hunt or criticism. I'm just stating that, and I'm sure she would agree.
She'd totally agree.
It is what she did. I'm not saying it, I'm not judging her. I am as objectively and openly and plainly just saying the dynamics of my childhood. I'm not complaining. In a different situation, I might write a letter to my mum and say, I'm so mad with you, and I'm so hurt, and all this sort of stuff. But this isn't the time for that. This is a different kind of conversation.
So you learned from your mum that
my way or the highway, do things my way, or it's a withdrawal of love.
So
that's the basic
I mean,
message.
This is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you learned from your dad and stepdad that maybe women were made for one thing, and that there was no reason to think anything else about women. And then from your mum, you learned that it's my way or the highway, and there was no real yielding necessarily.
Yes.
How has that played into your need to apologise to key women now? What do you think?
It's a long journey between those two.
Go on then.
Can I
well, we've got another 20 minutes.
Can I continue to flesh that out?
I'd love to hear it.
Right. Okay. So there I am, and it's a very good resonance with what's going on now, because you see there are younger ideological people who are upsetting their parents at the moment, the generations. So there are young people who say, well, a woman can be someone who just says they're a woman. Yeah. And there are older people saying, no, they're, it's like this. And if you care to go right back to, I think everybody wants the same thing, but it's to love and be loved, and just the best things in life for themselves and each other. And then we've all got our different ways of going about it. And that's when the trouble starts, isn't it? So typically, in many ways, it doesn't matter what the content is. The context or the process of how the traditional and the new relate to each other is with a bit of friction, isn't it? And we see in every age that is clear. And some might say it's more so now, but that's because it's being repeated and mirrored to us, isn't it, in social media and the news, and it's been politicized. So it seems much worse now, I think, than it ever was. But it's nothing new. It's nothing new for young people to say, well, I mean, you lot have really messed it up. I'm going to do it differently. And what actually happens is they don't normally. They make their own mistakes in their new way whilst trying to be loved and love people. Just
like we've made our own mistakes.
Exactly. It's nothing new under the sun, is it? Yeah. It's just same old. And the only salvation from that is for the individual to see what's going on. And that is, for people to be maybe a bit more reflective or more conscious or intelligent, you might say, and say, okay, and I'll own it. I'll own that. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'll tell you what my experience of that is. And that is to see how, on the one hand, I thought I was a different kind of lover and partner, and I was interested in, tantric. I would say I'm interested in making love and not sex. And the truth of it is, I was a randy little bastard who could have certain kind of conversations about sex, and it would serve me well to seem sensitive. And I was, I think that's fair to say, and it is something I was interested in and embraced, and that's fine for the upside, isn't it? But then what happens when the trouble starts? When you get into the pitch battles of marriage and connected relationships, when you've gone past the point of no return and you're hooked, and there's something that the power struggles begin after the romance. Yeah. And that's where you really find out if you're intelligent, I think, or evolved, because I really wasn't. I had some evolved ideas, I think, and I was more conscious and open to some new ways of being that might be more of a blessing in my relationships. But when it came to the proverbial hitting the fan, I was a primal animal. I was reptilian, and you've experienced this, haven't you? There is a moment, where the woke, awakened, conscious being that we'd love to be gives way to the darkest side, the shadow side of ourselves, right?
When I hear you talking about your past like this, because I know you as somebody who just wants to make love, and to me, you were the very first partner that I had that had ever spoken about making love, which really shocked me. And I realized my mum,
me as well.
Yeah. Right. And it shocks me because my mum and dad never spoke about making love necessarily. I think they used the term sex.
Having it off.
Having it off.
People from the 70s would be like getting their leg over it. It would be like, well, hey,
there's all this kind of sort of Benny Hill style innuendo and stuff.
And I would maintain that in that, women ultimately, after all the jokes and in the moment of love and connection and intimacy, women would feel loved and cherished and held possibly, and men would have a brief moment of relief and easiness, and would, even if they didn't want to say so, they might realize they have an intimacy beyond all intimacies in that moment. It might only last about 10 seconds or 20 seconds or whatever, but it's there, isn't it? If it's looked for, it's like, that's what we're really interested in, I think, as well as relieving ourselves in an animalistic way, possibly.
Well, I mean, is it animalistic to be human? I mean, I do think there are.
Maybe I'm not expressing that very well.
No, no. I mean, what I hear from your what you shared so far is that you had these like beautiful ideas about how you could love a woman, and
which not all women are interested in today.
No,
which is a
hilarious,
avenue.
When you first met and you said you wanted to rescue me, that I wanted to look for the door. I mean, I was
Did
really
I use
shocked.
those words?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
You said I'm a rescuer.
Well, I'm a better communicator.
I want to rescue you.
I think I'm a better communicator.
And I was like, oh, I'm out of here.
Right, okay.
But
which is nearly as good as I remember sending one of the books that really made an impact on me was a book called Making Love by Barry Long, and I sent it to a woman once, and she sent it back with a note on it. Not exactly Louise Hay, is it? It's been nice knowing you. That was it. That was the end of it.
I love that. But what occurs to me is you have these kind of noble ideas, and then and maybe spiritual ideas or ideas based on where you were repulsed by your father and stepfather's like attachment to women.
Yeah.
And then at the same time,
a savage.
Yeah, you thinking of them as maybe being savage with women.
No, I'm not a sexual savage.
No.
What I'm talking about is when you get triggered, you find out who you really are, don't you?
Yeah.
It's like, you know, if you think you're enlightened, spend a week with your family.
Definitely.
If you think you're enlightened, stay in a relationship.
Yes.
Beyond being triggered.
Yes.
And or if you want to be enlightened, stay in a relationship longer than your first response when you're triggered. Which is the thing I want to apologize about, which I didn't have the vocabulary or realization about in previous relationships.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't. But what also occurs to me from what you were sharing is that you'd suppressed your inner male, because when you described yourself as a randy little bastard, randy little bastard, I was.
Yes, British. All right, mate.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like you're putting yourself down or not acknowledging that side of you.
You know, that's a new man shadow thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but actually, it's really normal to feel the sap rising in you during your teen years and into your early 20s.
I suppressed that.
You suppressed that,
and
there is
disgust and horror that and you know that I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm saying that's not a good thing, but I see that's what I did.
Yeah, and so
like when I was with some men at the weekend, and I said I've never been to a strip club, even if that's what they're called.
Yeah,
you know, and I said, well, we're going to take you. And it's going to be. They said something like it's going. What I thought I heard them say was hugs and cocaine. I was saying, well, that's an interesting party, and they were saying hookers and cocaine, and it sounded even worse suddenly. And there's no, you know,
I've been to a strip club.
Yeah, I haven't been to a strip club.
But do you know what? I didn't enjoy it. But
were you expecting to?
I went with a group of men.
Yeah.
Weirdly. But I mean, that was, you know, before I met you, before, you know, I'd met a man who spoke about lovemaking. It was before I acknowledged that it was okay to be feminine. You know, that was.
You were at a strip club. Go on, get off.
No, but that was during my time when I was like a corporate girl.
Yeah.
And like seeing myself in a really sort of competitive way and competing with men. And
I see, and that'll be one way of outladding lads.
I was always
I
was always trying to kind of outlad lads and be okay and not be fazed by things. And so it just didn't bother me at all.
Yes.
But I realize now, you know, I remember going to.
My new man is very hurt by that story.
I remember going to a party. Sorry, shut up in a minute so you can carry on with your story. Yeah. But I remember once going to a birthday party. For women, I think it might have been was it a birthday party or a divorce party or something, and
whatever.
And they got strippers, and I was horrified because like these young strippers were like
cavorting,
15 years younger than me. I don't want to see boys stripping. I don't want to see anyone.
Some people do, don't they?
Yeah,
right.
But I found that really disturbing.
But this is not the place to judge them.
No, totally not. But in your story, I recognize that you're repulsed by one side of masculinity.
However,
and
the universe did bring me a dominatrix strippogram whilst I was DJing one evening.
Really? What happened there?
The Glaswegian Jackie in her leather gear and whip maybe turned the music off and pulled me out onto the dance floor. and spanked me in front of everybody there. And it was a
lot of this today.
It was a present that had been organised by my friend Johnny. Johnny, you bastard, still to this day. Sorry about the language on this episode. We need to put that on the notes, don't we? And it was a ritual humiliation, which, you know, for my disgusted new man, it would have been all I needed to see. You know, if this is what people are interested in, then count me out.
So back to the confessions.
Yeah. Okay.
So you have been repulsed by male archetypes and also suppressing the natural urges. And almost demonizing your urges.
Not almost, absolutely. And I had a celibate year as well. Okay. When I had my first major breakup with my teenage girlfriend, I celibatized myself for a year and went into some real horsehair shirt stuff and wrote journals about how awful men were. Okay.
So in terms of the subject that we started in the previous episode, which was about loving yourself and stop hurting yourself.
Yes.
How does this fit in with the women that you'd like to
so going back to triggering, in when the proverbial, so the romantic period, the period in which my best self of being a tantric love master could be shown to all its glory. And, you know, beautiful intimacy and the beginnings of relationships and love and romance. And then God only knows what my female partners must have thought when this man who was once, professing to be a tantric love god and a new man is a caveman suddenly, and he's not speaking. In fact, he's not even in the house or the town or the city or even the country. He's gone. He's left the building. And we were told the most amazing thing when we were talking to our friend Lonnie, weren't we? One time, and we you and I still have been dealing with the residue of this, haven't we?
Yeah.
Until fairly recently, and I don't know if it's all gone or not, but I know I'm better at it than I used to be.
We can at least talk about it.
Better at not doing it than I used to be. And Lonnie said, you said something to him like, I don't think he hears me in those situations. And Lonnie said it was the most amazing thing. He can't even hear himself in those situations. And that's because the primal punch has happened, doesn't it? I just, not a blow. It's something from very deep says, okay, this is it. I'm shutting this down. And that before I would have left the building and killed the relationship for a few days or something like that, or maybe for good. I had such a small tolerance for things going wrong. And that would be my, okay, that's it. I can't show you any love anymore. Or I don't even, it wasn't even conscious like that. It's like, I can't be with you anymore. I can't be myself. I can't do anything. I just have to get out of here because I can't bear what's come up. And that, and for the, with our partners, they don't know what they've done a lot of the time, do they? Because your triggers are selective. I remember being on holiday with a woman, another one who I've not spoken to since, who is, for a long time, I just thought she was a bit of an a-hole like me, and that's why it didn't work out. But she must have said something to me during this holiday, and we didn't speak for the rest of the holiday, and I was staying in her house. And she had to drive me back. This was a test. This is the universe testing me. I had to be silent for the last few days of the holiday, and I was broke as well. And so I was mainly walking about in this French holiday town, going to the cafe early in the morning, drinking brandy with the guys in the cafe, then walking about for the rest of the day because I couldn't be in the same house. This is how strong these urges are.
That's really strong.
Miles away from home. And obviously I thought, well, I could go back at night and sleep in, the spare room and until it's time to go home back to England. Because I couldn't get home without relying on the what good nature was left of this woman. And we got back to the UK. I got in my car. I don't think we ever saw each other again. But this is the sort of terrible stuff that kicks in when we're driven.
Terrible. I mean, you're a really articulate person.
Not in that. When it comes down, I mean, can we not all relate to that? Even the most articulate people, when your buttons get pushed, you are not an articulate person anymore. Okay. You are not the idealized version of yourself anymore. Well, and you can't hear yourself. Yeah. You can't. I'm
sorry to look shocked at that. I have heard that story before,
it's a good one,
but
isn't it?
It is a good one.
Yeah. Sorry, Helen.
I mean, she also had an opportunity. She could have tried to.
She had her own issues. I'm not saying.
And you probably matched and mirrored each other.
Of course we did. Of course we did. And I'm not. There's an expression, white knighting, isn't there? Where only men can do bad things. And as whilst they keep professing that and saying how terrible men are, there's no room in that for what women are bringing to the situation.
We all bring our stuff.
Yeah, of course.
What occurs to me,
I can only apologise and be aware of my part, can't I? I can't. I'm not. I don't want to accuse anyone else, and I don't expect an apology from anyone else. I'm just talking about my part of it, which is, I think, the only thing you can do.
Yeah, that is the only thing you can do.
But these lovely women who I've been in relationships with, who've mothered my children, I would kill them off. And I've done it to you. You know what it's like, don't you? To experience the caveman. So
I call him Mr. Freeze.
Yeah. So what good can come of that?
We had to name him, didn't we?
That's the question.
We could identify.
Yeah. And I know him. I see you, Mr. Freeze, and I can feel it coming on. And I do something different now. I'd like to think. And I've got my stick now, haven't I? Got my caveman baton.
Well, Mr. Freeze, the cutting off energy.
Yes. The killer, the stone cold killer of relationships.
This is interesting. Cutting off from the connection with someone, and they might have just the love that they're prepared to give you, the connection, and obviously,
call yourself a tantric master. Isn't that the bizarre thing? Isn't that the great irony? Is the person who thinks they know about love can cut love off like that based on a childhood training or habit?
Well, it's what you learn. I mean, like you said earlier, if you said something that didn't work for one of your parents, that was it. The wall came down.
Shame, blame, guilt, and cutting off. Yes.
So where does that leave you now?
It leaves me better for knowing that, for one thing. And something that occurs to me as part of it is like I acknowledged before, people are going to be people. They're going to do what they're going to do. And maybe if younger people hear older people talking about these things, and they know that it's, to me, I don't know, I would do this and I would just think it was normal. And I have, I've known about counseling, I've known about life coaching, I've known about all sorts of spiritual things that never had me very quickly see the shadow that was operating there. And I hope we're moving into a time where we're not, from as much as my stepfather and father were men of their time, I've been a new ager in my time. It's all been about the light, isn't it? Light workers and spiritual bypassing and all that sort of stuff. And maybe now, as much as there is hope, I think we should attend to the healing as much as we attend to the hope. So that will be what I could learn and share from all of this that I've talked about is, yes, hope and imagination and the light is very important.
Yeah.
And it's only as useful as you've addressed your healing as well.
Yeah.
And that's not as much fun, is it? Shall I go on a shadow workshop this weekend, or shall I go on a tantric shagging fest this weekend? I'll go on the shag fest. Thank you very much. Not that I ever did.
No.
By the way, but
I love
that's where we're at, isn't it? That's the possibility.
So, do you feel slightly purged from that? Do you?
Absolutely.
So,
for sure.
Realizing that Mr. Freeze, is a side of you that can come up.
A machine. It's
a program.
A program, a training. Yes, it's Windows 95.
Yeah.
It's Carl. It's Windows Carl from back in the day.
Yeah.
I have got Windows 11 on offer to me at the moment. I can have an upgrade. And there's that button. Do you really want to stay with the old system? Do you want a preview of the new system? No, I'm happy, thank you. I'm happy with my old operating system. Thank you very much. We've got to go. Is it part 3 in the offing?
Maybe. I think we should get some feedback from people that listen in. And
those women. Shall I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't think any of those women want to talk to you. But anyway, thank you so much for sharing. Okay. I feel better.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. I love how you've opened up. Bless you.
Well, thank you very much. And all right. And love to those and everybody and those women.